Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here to talk about chapter 40. Chapter is this? It's like chapter 38, I think, of Nikke got us a victory. So we pick up where we left off with, so we drove off Ziz and Leviathan last time and grabbed Behemoth's egg and brought it back to the Admiry. So we're all kind of like chit-chatting about that. We got like stabbed in the gut, like real bad. So, but we healed up. And so we get like an examination and everyone's like very impressed that we're able to survive everything that would happen. And that there is zero scarring, even though we healed very quickly. We get a lot of talk about Rappy, and she's definitely becoming much more enamored with, and not even more enamored. She's always been enamored with us, but she's becoming more kind of possessive, if you will. It's the thing. It's like it's a natural progression of what's been occurring before, but some of her judgments are starting to be clouded by like her attraction to us as well, which is something that gets brought up, and we discuss as like, hey, you got to like get your shit together, man. So. And then there's like some funny conversation, like you get like Mast and Drake going back and forth about stuff about like what's really our cure. Is it rum? Is it Nutrium? Is it something else or whatnot? And then at some point, and then we switch over to, just we're catching up with everybody. Maxwell wants to dissect Behemoth's egg, see what's going on, see about the creation of the heretics. And then Rappy's like, no, we need this as like a bargaining chip so we can make a deal with Levy and Ziz and take all that stuff. And Helm like steps in as well, and she gives some sort of like ridiculous speech about maintaining pride and conviction and not disgracing ourselves by doing what the enemy would do or whatever. And finally, this convinces everyone to just be like, okay, fine. We'll just hold the egg and figure it out. And something that comes up though pretty quick as we try to like move forward is there's silver liquid everywhere. So we had dark matter, but now we got this strange silver liquid. And Mast stops the ship and refuses to go into it without like further examination about what it's doing or what's going on and whatnot. And so we do some exploring around, and eventually we see that there's like this silver tree with golden fruits that appears to be the source of all this strange liquid. And then so we send Drake and Laplace. Oh no, we send Drake. We send Drake and Maxwell to go get a sample of the liquid, while Laplace guards the egg because the egg's very important as like a primary like bargaining chip. We then jump over to Leviathan and Ziz, and we kind of find out more about their situation. Like Leviathan's very upset that Ziz rescued her and not the egg, and then Ziz is very concerned because she just wants Levy to treat her well, to get, for all she wants is Levy's approval and companionship. But Levy's like very pissed off, and then this is like, no, I can't live without you. And Levy's like, I'd be fine. Like, I've been feeding parts of myself to Behemoth to like help her get back together, and I know if something happened, you guys would feed parts of yourselves to me and we'd be okay. We're heretics, like we can't really die, but now we don't have her, and if we don't have her, what are we gonna do? And so they go back and forth about this whole situation about sacrifice and what it means and whatnot. And then Ziz is like, well, I did find something really good. And Levy's like, what's that? And then she pulls out this like Nikke with no head, but it does have 2 cores. And Leviathan's like, wait a second. I know who that is, which is obviously Rappy. So back to us and the crew. We're just kind of hanging out, watching the liquid, trying to figure out what's going on with it and whatnot. And we see a Rapture just like roll on in there and melt completely. And so we're like, okay, we figured it out. So this, whatever this is, it like completely dissolves metal. Or not even metal, like man-made materials, it seems. But then like organic materials like us per se, but like, it's not really affecting grass or trees or anything like that. And so at some point while we're kind of doing all this stuff and they're trying to gather the liquid and whatnot, Drake drops some on her foot and it starts to like melt right through her. So she has to like, it like narrowly avoids like pulling, like she pulls like her boot off. And so it doesn't like run up her leg and like melt her whole body and whatnot. And then Rappy's like, well, these can't be natural. And it's like, thanks, Sherlock. We got and then all this is kind of tying into the concept that the 4 beasts are trying to build their own arc, right? So they're probably involved in this somehow, and they're trying to dissolve materials so they can create like a new arc and whatnot. And that, the 4 beasts, we keep fighting with them, but it's not really that they want to fight. They really just want to kind of have their own thing. They want to have their own arc, which they've told us before, and their own system. And, we start to come to the conclusion that it's like they don't want to build another heretic. They don't want to build, what they actually want to build is a queen, right? Because they're missing a queen, and like, how are they missing a queen? Don't they fall under the queen? And like, at some point, someone mentions like, we're missing something, or like something's gone, or whatever. And so, so clearly, that's what they're trying to do with all this stuff, right? Is they're trying to create their own queen. And like before, when they were talking about getting like material from us and whatnot, that's also related. So, and like, why would they want a queen? And they want a queen so that they can go against the other queen and the offspring, right? And we also learn somewhat here and later that the queen has been silent. Like, there hasn't been any response. So if she's not around, like, who's in charge, right? So that's causing a lot of problems. At this point, we jump back to Anise, Neon, and their journey to get the idol group TT Star back so she can do her final performance. And so Anise can get her upgrade and everything. So finally, after going, she put out the signal, meet me at the meat shop. We did our first show, and she keeps going back. And finally, Mint shows up. Mint's a former member of the team, and she knows about Prika. So then we go over and we meet Prika, who's the other member. So it's Mint, Prika, and Anise, right? Like spices. And they decide they're going to do a final farewell concert to officially close their chapter as idols. Prika tries to take charge a little bit. She is very stern, very professional, wants everything to be set up. She talks about how they can do the concert in 3 days, and they choose the last song they were going to sing, Be My Star, as that. And then Neon decides at this point that she's going to take the role of manager to support Anise. And then she kind of realizes when she watches them practice and stuff that Anise really was a talented pop star, despite her being very cynical, right? Like, her personality is like vastly different than when she was trying to be like a pop star. We learned a bit more about Mint and Prika. Mint has spent the last several decades being a cooking idol, right? She has a popular cooking show, right? And when she nicks her fingers, and she's very personable and stuff. And then Prika has been running a business for accessories and whatnot. And we learned that they downgraded their bodies to be more human-like bodies. So that's why they can get scars or nicks and stuff, and they don't just heal. And all that stuff, and that this has given them a more authentic human experience, and it also helps them connect with their fans better. Also, around this time, Anise starts apologizing for the incident, the smile time, that broke up their group in the first place, and that they talk about how there's still some tension between them all and everything that happened. And at some point, Prika mentions that she's always been jealous of Anise's natural talent. So time goes by, and it's 3 days later. It's not 3 days later, but it's the next day they're practicing, and then Prika and Mint are really half-assing it. They're just using old costumes. They're just talking about doing 100-person venue. They want to use auto-tune. And so Anise starts calling them out, and then Prika calls her out for just wanting to do this because other people tell her that she has to do it. She doesn't actually want to do this. She's half-assing it as well. It's not just them. And so Anise and Neon storm out, and then we find out that Mint and Prika are actually trying to provoke Anise to get a better reaction out of her, because they actually do want to do a big event, but neither of them has the money to really pay for it. So they kind of assume, since Anise is super famous with the counters and everything, that she'll be able to use her resources, her connections, to get them an actual concert and all that stuff. So after they leave, Anise is encouraged by Neon. They talk about what Anise really wants, how she wants to do this, and Anise wants to go out and with a bang, right? She wants to do this grand but beautiful performance. She doesn't want to just go out on a whimper. Being TT Star was a big thing for her. They then talk about how Anise really doesn't know anybody in the industry, and they have no connections or anything left. So she goes to Overseer, which is Irie and Avistar, and they learn about Miss Miss. Miss Miss is a disgraced producer from back in the day who worked with Pretty, and she has recently been released from jail for doing shady shit. And the last place she was headed was out into the Outer Rim. So Neon's going to go get her out of the Outer Rim, bring her back, and have her produce for TT Star. And so she heads off on her own to make that happen. We head back over to us with Rappy and Mattis, and we bumped into Leviathan and Ziz again. So battle commences, and there's a lot of back and forth about Behemoth and all this stuff. And then Ziz grabs Laplace and Drake and tosses them in the air again, right? But this time, Mattis is ready. They've got their upgrades, their tactical upgrades, or they don't call them tactical upgrades. That's an Elysian thing. So they get their upgrades. They get launched out of the Admiral, and Maxwell or Drake and Laplace instantly transform. Essentially like the super ridiculous like transformation where they're like, got it, we did this, excellent, we're the best. And then so they land and they start beating the shit out of Levy and Ziz, and then Maxwell like rolls out with her upgrade, and between the three of them they just like completely destroy Leviathan and Ziz to a point where they force them into having like a conversation. And at this point, talking to them, we learn that the theory that they want a new queen is 100% correct, that they're trying to reestablish like the Rapture hierarchy with the new queen where they can be in charge and then the offspring can go fuck themselves, essentially. And so at this point, we are get Leviathan to agree to an alliance, because it's like, hey, we want to help with getting Behemoth back. We also want to fight the queen. If you guys want to fight the queen, like the enemy of the enemy is my friend. And Leviathan's still very concerned about betrayal and all that stuff. So at this juncture, we start talking about the silver liquid and where it's coming from. And Leviathan is like, yes, that tree is actually the it's like the saliva glands from a massive rapture known as gluttony. Yes, and we faced gluttony before with Old Sphere. And so at this point, Mattis and well, no, just the Admiral powers up its cannon to full to like 150% output and just blasts the shit out of the tree. But right as it's like blasting it, the big mouth of Gluttony comes out and like devours all the energy. And then of course we know what happens when it devours energy. It blasts it the fuck back. So that's what it does. It blasts the whole area, turning the whole place into like a complete wasteland. And then it like retreats out of there. And Admiral is like not destroyed, but it is heavily damaged, so we can't use it anymore. And it's completely offline. And so at some point, Maxwell identifies Gluttony as the Rapture that ate the ICBM missile from like the initial when they first tried to use missiles against the space tower, the space elevator. It's what ate it and then redirected the fire back at the forces of humanity. At this point, Leviathan and Ziz are like, all right, time to run. And they grab the egg and they make a break for it. But then like a big mother whale comes out of the sky and like yums them all up. And we're like, what the fuck? And it's like, now what are we supposed to do? And what we're supposed to do, we'll find out in chapter 39. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.